everybody. Thank you so much for being here, and it's so wonderful. I have to say, so we're in DC. Usually during the ACS convention, it's 150 degrees outside. It's sweaty and disgusting. You're all really happy to be in here. And the testament to your commitment, but also the incredible interest, interesting program that we have here that on one of the probably most beautiful days in DC, but don't go see how nice it is until we're done here. But you're all in here having lunch with us and preparing for, I think, the final plenary of the day, which is perhaps the most significant one of the entire conference. So thank you again for being with us. I want to make two quick housekeeping announcements. First, for those of you who may not know that the Capitol Steps is performing tonight and we have discounted tickets still available, there are still a few at the desk where the silent auction items are. And you can stop by and look and check those out. The other thing is if you did perhaps win something at the silent auction, you might want to go inquire about that so that you can actually take whatever it is you won home. And there were some very nice items, as you know. So now, I'd like to move to something that's a very important part of our program today. And that is to present the second annual ACS David Carliner Public Interest Award. This award, which includes a $10,000 cash prize, $10,000, say that again. This is for a progressive nonprofit. That's a pretty big prize. We recognize as outstanding mid-career public interest lawyers whose work best exemplifies its namesake's legacy of fearless, uncompromising, and creative advocacy on behalf of marginalized people. The award was established in the memory of one of the great public interest lawyers of the 20th century, David Carliner, who was a true champion of justice, both in his native Washington, D.C., and on the national stage. David Carliner was a tireless, innovative litigator who also played a leading role in building institutions devoted to protecting civil and human rights and combating injustice on a systemic basis. A pioneering immigration lawyer, an ardent foe of Jim Crow laws, and a leading champion of full political rights for the citizens of the District of Columbia, still working on that. He was also the founding chair of the American Civil Liberties Union National Capital Area and the International Human Rights Law Group, which is now Global Rights. ACS is honored to bestow an award bearing his name. The volume and the quality of the applications we received was really very inspiring. The unenviable task of selecting just one winner fell to a distinguished panel of judges: Nan Aaron, Judge William Fletcher, Wade Henderson, Judge Patricia Wald, Deborah Carliner, and Jacob Remus, who discharged their responsibilities admirably. So here to present the ACS David Carliner Award is Sarah Remus, the granddaughter of David Carliner.
Thank you. Like my grandfather, all of the applicants have dedicated this year's award, have dedicated their lives to fearless and creative advocacy. We received particularly strong applications this year. It is with great pleasure that I announce the finalist for the David Carliner Award, Kate Mogilescu of the Legal Aid Society in New York, who fights for the rights of victims of sex trafficking, including helping them vacate prostitution-related criminal convictions. Please stand to be recognized. And the winner of this year's David Carliner Award is Jansen Wu, staff attorney at Gay and Lesbian Advocates and Defenders in Boston. Mr. Wu's battles on behalf of marriage equality and transgender rights perfectly embody my grandfather's passion for civil rights and equality for all. My grandfather was an early advocate for ending restrictions on interracial marriage and for gay rights, and he would have been proud of Mr. Wu's work. Mr. Wu has been a powerful advocate for marriage equality. He led the legislative effort to secure marriage equality in New Hampshire at a time when others believed such a thing was impossible. In his recommendation, Bishop Gene Robinson wrote, "I now have a husband, not just a friend or partner, because of Jansen Wu's efforts in our midst." Mr. Wu has taken the fight into the courts, where he is a lead member of the team challenging the Defense of Marriage Act. He and his team recently achieved an enormous victory when the First Circuit became the first circuit court to rule that DOMA is unconstitutional. It is also appropriate. It is appropriate that Mr. Wu is honored with this award in the name of the person who brought the first interracial marriage case to the Supreme Court in 1956. Mr. Wu has been a leader for transgender rights. While working on the marriage equality bill in New Hampshire, he insisted that his coalition include the struggles of transgender people. He led a litigation effort against Denny's in Maine after the restaurant refused to allow a transgender customer to use the appropriate restroom. Not only did Mr. Wu secure a settlement for his client, but Denny's changed its policies to be welcoming and respectful of all transgender customers. Mr. Wu was a key member of a Maine coalition that protected transgender rights against a right-wing attempt to cut them from an anti-discrimination bill. He is the co-author of a recently published book, Transgender Family Law, A Guide to Effective Advocacy. In 1965, my grandfather won the right of gay employees to work for the federal government, and Mr. Wu's work follows in those footsteps. Please join me in congratulating Jansen Wu.
And now I am honored to present the winners of the Richard D. Cudahy Writing Competition on Regulatory and Administrative Law. This competition honors Judge Cudahy's decades of distinguished service as one of the nation's finest appellate judges. Before joining the bench, Judge Cudahy, a graduate of West Point and Yale Law School, served as an Air Force officer, private attorney, law professor, and chief executive, and member of the Wisconsin Public Service Commission. Since his appointment to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit in 1979, Judge Cudahy has secured a national reputation for the depth, rigor, and fair-mindedness of his opinions, academic publications, and speeches. The winning submission in the student category is Administrative Oversight of State Medicaid Payment Policies, Giving Teeth to the Equal Access Provision, by Julia Beinstock, JD candidate at Fordham University School of Law, 2013. And the winning submission in the lawyer category is Adaptable Due Process by Jason Parkin, Associate Research Scholar in Law, Robert M. Cover Clinical Teaching Fellow, and Clinical Lecturer in Law at Yale Law School. So let's give them a big round of applause. So now I'd like to ask Bibi Anderson to come on stage. ACS is proud to stand with the Center for Reproductive Rights to fight for equality and justice for all. I am very pleased to introduce Bibi Anderson, the director of the U.S. Legal Program for the Center for Reproductive Rights. She came to the center in 1998 as a staff attorney and returned to the organization in 2010 as senior counsel. Recently, she briefed and presented successful First Amendment arguments against intrusive mandatory ultrasound requirements in North Carolina and Texas. In both cases, a federal judge viewed the requirements as violations of free speech and granted preliminary injunctions against the law. Bibi graduated with honors from a really wonderful law school, Columbia Law School. So I'm an alum as well. So I am very pleased to be up here with Bibi today. So I will turn the podium over to you.
Thank you, Carolyn. On behalf of the Center for Reproductive Rights, I'm very pleased to be here and joining ACS today at this conference to acknowledge the work of Sandra Fluke, and in her name, the work of law students who've also worked to dedicate themselves to promote the issue of reproductive rights and justice in their law schools and in their communities. Sandra and her colleagues at Georgetown Law, both those affiliated with the Law Students for Reproductive Justice and also with the local ACS chapter, have undertaken remarkable work over the past years. And this was happening before contraceptives were making headlines in this last year. This was happening long before that because they were working to promote the simple principle that contraceptives are an essential preventive health service, and also the idea that even though contraceptives are an essential part of women's health care and essential for women's equality, they're also fundamentally important to all people in our society. Of course, none of us could have predicted the way that Sandra would have come to all of our attention this past year. And, you know, I really do think that we have to be grateful to Representative Darrell Issa and to Rush Limbaugh. Because, really, don't you think? Because if it hadn't been for them, the work of Sandra and so many other law students would not have reached as wide an audience in this country as it did. And it was really due to their clear hostility to women that we were able to learn what courage, integrity, and also grace under pressure really looks like, and how that looks in this next generation of lawyer advocates. So every day at the Center for Reproductive Rights, we fight to make the reproductive rights of women protected as fundamental constitutional and human rights. The governments all must protect, fulfill, and respect. Today, we are thrilled to join with ACS in honoring Sandra Fluke for doing just that and presenting her with the joint ACS Center for Reproductive Rights Student Policy Advocates Award, and to all say to her, thank you and carry on.
Thank you so much. It's quite a thing as a recent law school graduate to be introduced by the likes of Bibi Anderson and Carolyn, who have done so much for reproductive justice in this country. Thank you both for all of your work. And thank you so much to ACS and to CRR for this acknowledgement. It means a lot to me, especially because it is focused explicitly around my work as a student and recognizing that students had a big impact on this political and policy conversation, and also recognizing that it wasn't just me alone who did that, that I worked with so many other students on my campus and at campuses across this country to accomplish this particularly strange type of victory. And I do want to acknowledge that Lucy Panza and Kelly Percival are in the room today, and please give them a hand. These ladies have put in every bit of sweat and tears that I did organizing on this policy, and it's just by absolute luck that I got called a slut instead of them. I'm not attempting to disparage your sexual reputations, ladies. But what I'd like to leave you all with today is just a word of encouragement to make this happen again. Maybe not exactly like this, but to go home to your communities where I know you're already working with students on law school campuses and do more. invigorate them more, help them to find the tools and the cause that are important to them and that they can really make a difference on. Because this policy effort was an absolute boot camp for us of how to be progressive activist lawyers. We organized on campus, we studied legislation, we commented to HHS, we testified, and at this point I think we've got communications going okay. And yes, we even considered litigation, and it was literally us sitting around a table saying, well, in one of my classes, I remember that it's supposed to go like this. Let's try that. So please, find the young, energetic students on the campuses where you are and find ways to work with them and help them to have this kind of boot camp, to prepare them to fight the battles that we all have to fight together. And think about how reproductive justice connects to all of the battles that all of you are already fighting, because that's the thing that's most important to me about the Law Students for Reproductive Justice programming and the reproductive justice framework, is that it connects all of these different areas of oppression and helps us to fight them as one progressive community, not as siloed and isolated efforts. And that, together, is how we're actually ultimately going to defeat the likes of Darrell Issa and Rush Limbaugh. And thank you again very much.
So I would really like to, one more time, thank Sandra and also thank all of our other student leaders who are in the room here today and those who couldn't join us. And I hope we can take 1 second to give a round of applause to all of those ACS student leaders who every day do small and large things to move our movement forward, to make sure that we have a land in which the law is a force for good for all people. So let's thank our student leaders.